Talent, money, belief, ambition. Even if all of these essential ingredients are present in abundance, chasing perfection for a video game can be a fool's errand, especially when it involves the most volatile entertainment industry on the planet and baying mobs of fans ready to champion or pull things apart in equal measure. Still, some visionaries will weather the inevitable storm to see their creation through to completion, even if it means making sacrifices along the way. Because games can have heart and soul, and it really is okay to do your best. I personally adore every game on this list, but as the comments will no doubt prove, the conversations around so-called perfect games are always pretty fascinating. For this video, I'm all but going to remove my own opinions from the games themselves. I want to hand the conversation over to you guys, as the controversies and flaws mentioned are taken from a variety of write-ups, forum posts, general consensuses post-launch, etc. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 perfect video games with one glaring flaw. Number 9. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Divine Beasts. Finally, following the brilliant but structurally tired Skyward Sword in 2011, Nintendo got to work on giving Link's by-the-numbers adventures the biggest shakeup since the original game. Minus the notable citizens of Hyrule, Nintendo stripped out the series' trademarks, dungeons, linear narratives, a pseudo-open world, and replaced them with a new version of Hyrule altogether. This was a Hyrule sprawling with hills as far as the eye could see, with next to no guidance for Link himself on how to become a legend. Another part of this major rejig involved the controversial replacement of traditional dungeons with shrines, bite-sized combat and mental challenges scattered across the land, plus the show-stopping divine beasts. The former were expertly realized, but the latter, not so much. All 4 animal-shaped dungeons represent the same end-of-level challenge as traditional dungeons did in the older Zeldas, but they're tragically let down not just by length or lack thereof, but cut-and-paste design overall. You explore near-identical environments, activate a handful of shrine points, and then fight a boss. Rinse, repeat 4 times. Or 8 if you add the DLC, because literally, Nintendo just repackaged these boss battles and sold them again as DLC. But if we're talking about the main game of Breath of the Wild, Divine Beasts certainly looked the part, and even though I personally think the game is a masterpiece, all of this does stick out like a sore thumb. Number 8. Overwatch, a rotten in-game economy. Cosmetic only is not a valid defense for loot box monetization if said loot is still random. Because who the hell wants to throw money at a glorified roulette spinner hoping that they will get something worthwhile eventually? Ethically, obtaining random items that don't affect gameplay is somewhat more acceptable than, say, hiding unlocks and progression systems behind them like in Star Wars Battlefront 2, but at the end of the day, gambling is gambling. With Belgium having banned the sale of loot boxes, Blizzard and its peers have been left with no option than to remove the relevant monetization systems from Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm. This begs the question though, why not replace the systems entirely? So far, all of Overwatch's post-launch content, maps, modes, character skins, etc. have been free for owners of the base game. Selling cosmetics is how Blizzard recoups its development costs, but why not, instead of continuing to court controversy with randomization, just sell skins, sprays, and voice lines directly, providing you insist on having more in-game storefronts. It's the right and pro-consumer thing to do, and would result in nothing but positive publicity for Blizzard. Honestly, I don't know why they don't do this. Let me buy the wolf skin for Hanzo, just let me do it. Number 7. Batman: Arkham Knight, the Batmobile. If Arkham Asylum represented the series' potential to be the ultimate Batman video game, and then Arkham City the realization of that potential, Arkham Knight is to some/many/you and Patterson a big old misstep. Expanding Batman's concrete playground and sprinkling more members of his rogues gallery in was all welcome, but Rocksteady did run the risk of being more of the same. Their answer? The Batmobile. A feature that the developers up until Arkham Knight's release had resisted the inclusion of. In retrospect though, it was for good reason. On one hand, the Caped Crusader's signature mode of transport felt great to play around with, but on the other, Rocksteady's efforts to accommodate its inclusion as an integral feature rather than a gimmick meant that they bit off more than they could chew, to say the least. Unlike the tireless enjoyment gained from beating thugs silly with Batman's fists, vehicular combat grew old very fast. The handling of Batman's various showdowns with the Arkham Knight are still talked about negatively today. And although there was a lot of fun to be had tearing around Gotham in what is essentially a giant bat erection, all that forced combat stuff has always put me off replaying the entirety of it since 2015. Number 6. God of War, a lack of unique boss encounters. When your past games include battering actual gods and titans without breaking a sweat, any future achievements have one hell of a comparison to go up against. Now, to be clear, the boss encounters present in 2018's God of War are all still fantastic, especially the tag team brawl against Modi and Magni, but the issue lies instead in Kratos' Nordic adventure not providing enough of them. The Ghost of Sparta's encounters with Balder, his aforementioned nephews, the Dark Elf Svartalfjord and Valkyrie Queen Sigrun are all terrific feats of spectacle, but those highs are interrupted too often by copycat encounters with the same trolls and ogres, only with slight variations to stave off the feeling of repetition. The reason for this is twofold. First up, director Cory Barlog mentioned to Gaming Bolt that if they included as many bosses as he first thought possible, the game would have taken 20 years. Also, remember that this rebooted God of War is the start of a whole new series of installments. The likes of Thor, Odin, Frigg, Sif, etc. were likely trimmed and held back for sequels. But still, Norse mythology isn't short of deities to put on the chopping block, and those ogre encounters did repeat a lot. A few more unique encounters with spectacles like in the finale would have balanced everything out perfectly. Number 5. Deus Ex Human Revolution. Outsourcing content. Eidos Montreal's revival of Ion Storm's legendary Deus Ex series in 2011 resulted in a shoo-in for one of the best games of that generation, but it never reached the top spot due to one glaring and avoidable flaw: outsourcing. With the majority of resources going towards making narrative and open-ended gameplay a priority, and crunch time looming ever closer, Eidos had no other option but to outsource pre-planned boss battles to another developer. The stipulation was that they had to adhere to Human Revolution's existing framework, as the only other option was to cut the encounters entirely. Grip Entertainment were brought in, but they probably regretted it post-launch, as some heavily scripted and combat-heavy encounters jarred massively with everything else the game was trying to do. The overall takeaway? Never ever outsource a key component of your game to an external source, especially not without first ensuring said contractor is aware of the vision you're trying to achieve. Number 4. Halo: The Library. Bungie are a completely different beast today than back in the 2000s, but the legacy they left behind is still felt by every gamer that's ever considered themselves a first-person shooter fan. What Halo did cannot be overstated, and it's a testament to Bungie's forward thinking that 343's awesome remaster, which left combat evolved mechanics untouched, felt just as modern in 2011 as it did a decade prior. What it also accidentally did, though, was shine a light on an overlooked weak link in Halo's otherwise perfect chain of campaign levels: the library. 343's fresh coat of paint certainly made things look better, but the library's gauntlet of dark corridors was populated by infinitely spawning flood, reverting Halo's progressive non-linear image back to just basic corridor shooting. The fanbase has remained divided on this ever since day one, and it all came to a head one more time when the remaster dropped for everyone to play. What side do you come down on? Either you're a fan of the library and you don't mind, or it's just about the biggest wart on the face of the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Number 3. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. Overusing assets. Available on more platforms than a Nintendo protagonist, Bethesda's latest Elder Scrolls continues to enjoy dominance across the board, and it's easy to see why. Sprawling dungeons, a massive open world, heaps of quests and quest givers, and of course a ton of dragons. On the surface, Skyrim has a lot to offer, but in reality, especially for the fandom, there's a whole bunch of debates going on. Especially if you're an Oblivion fan screaming that Elder Scrolls 4 is really the best of the bunch. Conquering your first tomb of Draugrs, slaying your first dragon, overhearing ambient NPC dialogue, Skyrim's list of dopamine releases is taller than the throat of the world. But when those core activities repeat 10, 20, 30 times, fatigue does set in, and that veil of immersion can start to fall away. Scouring the landscape for Daedric artifacts, exploring more unique environments, joining a country-spanning civil war, or just choosing to be a werewolf. These are the unique moments that make Skyrim such a gargantuan success. It is not, however, because of by-the-numbers rematches with the same dragon you fought on day one, only for it to come up with a different skin color and different colored breath. Yes, I know all of this is blasphemous, hence why I took myself out of the opinion side of it. Number 2. Uncharted 2: Among Thieves. Messy combat. Now, I love myself some Uncharted 2, but like many of its fans, I come up against a brick wall trying to say that the combat is pretty damn great. Let's just see what you guys think. So, Uncharted 2 is the game that elevated Nathan Drake's treasure hunting escapades from solid Sony exclusive to an integral cornerstone of the PlayStation family. Naughty Dog's bigger, better, and more bombastic sequel raised the bar for what gamers should expect from any action-adventure, single-handedly showcasing storytelling, puzzle-solving, and set-piece curation all at once. Now, the term interactive movie does carry a negative connotation, especially in gaming circles, but in Uncharted 2's case, it was nothing but an adoring compliment. Naughty Dog had managed to blend cinematic quality with solid gameplay, and it was all so seamless. Well, almost. Despite its reputation, Uncharted 2's combat scenarios struggle to rise above mediocre. The by-the-numbers engagements, devoid of any rhyme or rhythm besides kill all these guys trying to kill you, all of those play out identically until the credits, the only variables being terrain. Number 1. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Unfinished business. Now, this one does not require an opinion, because whatever it is that caused the schism between Konami and Hideo Kojima to grow so wide, we'll likely never know, but what's not up for debate is the detrimental effect it had on the overall quality of Metal Gear Solid 5. Case in point, the sharp decline in quality arriving around the halfway point, when the plot, having already concluded the Skullface arc, reduces the game to a rinse and repeat job where the player is forced to go back through several past missions just to make the plot limp along to an unsatisfying conclusion. Konami have never conceded to the suspicions that Phantom Pain shipped in an unfinished state, but the discovery of cut content in the form of unreleased episodes and a third chapter all but cement the reality of what happened during development. It's a sad ending to the last mainline Metal Gear Solid, at least from Hideo Kojima. And that is not my list. It was adapted from our website, where you can also submit your own articles to get paid. We've got a whole new community section on the homepage to showcase a wider variety of submissions, and all website revenue always gets split with you 50-50. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.